Thank you for staying with us, and we'll move straight into the conversation right now that has to do with the business of governance, but then from the angle of politics, where the African Democratic Congress, the ADC, has come out to accuse President Tinubu of financial, if I call it fiscal recklessness, especially with the loan that he has been seeking and getting the approval of the National Assembly to do. And they have faulted him on the recent one, which is that of $21 billion loan. And they accused him that he's plunging the country into a deeper debt crisis. And that was said in a statement issued on Saturday by Bolaji Abdullahi, the ADC's National Publicity Secretary. And they said the approval of a fresh $21 billion loan by the National Assembly will push Nigeria's public debt beyond 200 trillion naira by the end of the year. They said President Tinubu had outpaced former President Muhammadu Buhari in borrowing, despite failing to improve infrastructure or stimulate the economy. And the ADC, according to them, let me quote them now, the ADC is deeply concerned by the Tinubu administration's dangerous obsession with borrowing. What Nigerians are witnessing following the approval of a fresh $21 billion in foreign loans is nothing short of a calculated decision to mortgage the country's future just to cover up the failures of today. They said Buhari borrowed an average of 4.7 trillion naira annually, but Tinubu's government has raised that figure tenfold. In just 2 years, this administration has borrowed more than 10 times what Buhari borrowed in the same time frame. At this rate, Nigeria's total public debt will crash through 200 trillion naira before the end of the year. And they said many things as well that we'll look into in the course of the program. They also talked about why maybe governors are not joining their rank. Well, let's start with this. The accusation of fiscal recklessness by the president made by the ADC. We have joining us this morning virtually the Director General of the Heritage Center, a politician, a public affairs analyst as well, Dr. Pacha. It's good to speak with you again, Doctor. Good morning.
Good morning. I thank your audience also for being here with us.
All right. You heard what the ADC, they have been firing on all cylinders since, they have formed that party and they, have executives in interim positions right now, and they are bringing out things. And there are many sides to that. Doctor, many persons are saying, with the latest accusation against President Tinubu of saying he has even outpaced Buhari tenfold, some will say, where is the lie? Number one. Number two, many persons will say maybe this is the real opposition that the APC have lacked all through the years. Where do you belong?
Well, you see, nature abhors vacuum. And the APC has sought to emasculate any other opposing political platform. And so from the APC, the CPC faction has now taken shape, renamed itself the ADC, sprinkled with some remnants of the MPDP, and then boom, it is APC 1 versus APC 2. That's why it's very, very interesting. But I will tell you, we Nigerians should just be watching and see how far it gets. I see this as an internal implosion in the APC. The members of the CPC faction not dissatisfied with President Tinubu for continuing policies that the CPC faction tolerated under President Tinubu, have now come under this umbrella and are demanding for answers from President Tinubu for his continuation of some of the policies of President Buhari. That's a very interesting thing. But I want to tell you, as I said earlier, and I've repeated that every time, there is a need for us to rebuild the democratic opposition in our country. And to do that, we have to bring everybody together. So instead of just cutting themselves out to go stand on a third leg, I think we should look at a way to unite the opposition. You know, because a lot of the people you see in the ADC are those who refuse to zone in the PDP, and that particular business was why the PDP imploded. So now some of them have been led by Atiku to join the CPC faction, and I welcome it. So they know the truth of what Tinubu, their former member, is doing. And that's why you see them can be this pointedly in attacking him, which is okay. But I am advising them to follow the opposition PDP to zone the presidency to the south. That will now bring peace for the opposition to close ranks, and you have a united opposition, because that's what's dividing the opposition. The refusal of elements of the political establishment from the north to allow the presidential pendulum that has been in the north for 8 years under President Buhari to now swing back to the south. So for me, this is a good start by the CPC faction, you know, using the ADC as a halfway home. But it is wrong for the things I've been hearing. They have been making it so much of the whole of the North, the whole of the North. Who is the whole of the North? It's a miscellaneous statement. Please don't be saying the whole of the North are now in ADC. It's not true. The North Central are not with them, because the biggest problem to the North Central is security. And if the leaders in ADC right now, that is the CPC faction people and the MPDP leaders, would not stand up to criticize the industrial scale ethnic cleansings ongoing in the Middle Belt, they will not get the listening from the Middle Belt. So when they say the North, ADC, it's not true. The Middle Belt are not there, because the Middle Belt are watching to see if they will get out of bed with the sponsors and patrons of the ongoing violence across the Middle Belt. Now, that's my take in regards to making the opposition stronger. It is true that President Tinubu has not been governing well. And I would say President Tinubu has a lot of reasons to be concerned that members of his own party, namely the CPC faction, are now leaving him to go stage a deserter station in the ADC. That calls for serious reflection in those who care about the stability of the state, because this is the governing party. The governing party, before our own eyes, is now dismembering itself, splitting into the ADC and the APC. So that should be an issue for grave concern to everybody. And I understand it does give concerns to the president, because these are members of his party. These are members of his coalition. They look at the inception of the CPC. Everybody currently today in ADC were foundation members of the CPC, I mean of the APC.
All right.
Okay? You look at the formation of the APC and you see everybody today in the ADC are members of the foundation of the APC. So what you're now seeing is a splintering of the APC. Those primarily from the CPC faction are now in the ADC, and President Tinubu, with the remnants of those who are with him in the ACN, are there in government. And the CPC are saying that President Tinubu's embrace of the same nepotism which President Buhari used to divide the country is unacceptable to them. And that's a good thing for us Nigerians, because a lot of us have been complaining about nepotism. And the way Tinubu has now embraced it, excluding a large section of the country, the CPC faction say they are not going to accept it.
All right.
The good thing that will come out of this, yes, there are a lot of good things that will come from this.
All right.
As I was trying to say.
Oh.
The good things are, if it forces the president to sit up, we might see better governance going forward before the elections.
All right, Dr. Nonju, let's take a quick look at the economy right now. The ADC has said the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is simply mortgaging Nigeria's future. It didn't start today. Let's look back at how it all began. When President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was inaugurated, he gave a speech which a lot of Nigerians have accused him of tactlessness. When he came out and said that subsidy will be removed, that there will no more be subsidies. And the idea of subsidy removal is just to cushion the effects and reduce borrowing, okay, on the part of the Nigerian government. But ironically, he has been in government. According to Economic Post report, within 23 months, he has borrowed 57 trillion naira, which is inching close to what former President Buhari borrowed in 8 years. So the question is, how come we are borrowing more when we don't have subsidy anymore? When subsidy has been removed, yet Mr. President keeps borrowing over and over again. Recently, the National Assembly approved borrowing of $21 billion. Now the ADC is crying out saying, you are mortgaging Nigeria's future. Dr. Nonju, how do we explain this? We don't have fuel subsidy anymore, yet we are borrowing more than the previous administration, which had fuel subsidy in place. So what do you think Mr. President is doing wrong in this regard? Is he intentionally mortgaging Nigeria's future, just like the coalition is claiming right now?
The words are not new. We said that as opposition PDP. I said that severally while Buhari was in power. The gentlemen who are now accusing Tinubu, I believe, kept mute while Buhari was doing a lot of those things. And now that they are speaking up, as Tinubu has continued it, it's very interesting. What I will say is, an analyst and commentator like me will always learn more when I hear the people who were in the kitchen start now to criticize policies for which they kept mute for. So I think what we are hearing is just the beginning of the revelations that will come from inside sources of government in regards to the reckless embrace of borrowing without a plan by the APC administration. I would love APC to succeed so that Nigeria would progress, because a rising tide lifts all boats. But now that they are quarreling among themselves and then parroting what we members of the opposition had been saying long before now, I think it's very interesting. But it doesn't say anything new. This is what we've said. The APC has been very reckless in its borrowings, and we have not seen where the money has gone to. Through the Buhari years, money was borrowed only to be shared, according to Buhari, to the poor in the north. And some of that money was borrowed, was not traced to the hands of the Humanitarian Affairs Minister. But I can tell you, nothing has come out of those, acrobatics. You can see all that has died down. No convictions from the IRS. All that was noise. So these people talking are now blaming themselves for not bringing consequences against those who mismanage our economy. I don't see them making noise as being different from President Tinubu himself, because these are members of the Tinubu clan, members of Tinubu's APC, who for 8 years kept mute at these same policies of nepotism, of reckless borrowing, without actually showing us a plan of how those borrowings have been put to use for the Nigerian people. The only thing they will tell you now is that, yes, Tinubu went on to give action to the Buhari's plot of saying the country cannot do subsidy anymore. We have made no plan for subsidy. The next government, when it comes, there is no plan for subsidy. And of course, the international lenders agreed with President Buhari and said, for whoever will take over from you to gain any cooperation and help from us, they must stop subsidy. But the problem was the strategy and the way in which the subsidy removal was implemented was not clear. It was supposed to be removed, and then the savings from it flowed back to other parts of the economy where there was a lot of need for care. But no, we didn't see that. So what we have seen is a continuation of what we saw under President Buhari.
Yeah, but Dr.
Yeah, the numbers may change.
Yeah, Dr. Katz,
Yes.
sorry to cut in here. The point is, how come we are borrowing more now that we don't even have fuel subsidy? After fuel subsidy has been, how come we are borrowing more? That's the big question. Tinubu came in and promised renewed hope agenda. So how come under him, ironically, we are borrowing more now that we don't even have fuel subsidy anymore?
We are borrowing more because there's a competition. There's a competition by the second APC government to outdo the first APC government in taking money from the international market as borrowings and then squandering it in what we don't know. So they are competing amongst themselves. The people who are now accusing Tinubu are now complaining that Tinubu is trying to outcompete them. These are the people who brought this. So they are complaining that Tinubu is trying to outdo them when they ran the government with Buhari. And we ourselves are asking, what did you do with the first borrowings you people instrumented and managed under Buhari? So if you want to find out about what is going on, it's very simple. The gentleman asking the questions, being products of the APC, should explain to us what happened during the first tranche of borrowings
if
under
I may quickly
Buhari.
add this, yeah, because there is something I'm noting here, and many Nigerians are, asking as well to say, is the ADC and, those that are there, especially the bloc that you just explained now, are they being tactical by half? And I explain, or maybe being clever by half, because looking at what Bolaji Abdullahi released, he said in just 2 years, this administration has borrowed more than 10 times what Buhari borrowed in the same time frame. In another regard, he said, with the Naira now in free fall, again, thanks to this administration's poor policy choices, these same loans are costing the country far more. He went ahead to say, when converted to Naira, Tinubu's foreign borrowing amounts to 25.5 trillion every year, more than Buhari's annual average of 2.2 trillion naira. Now, Dr. Katz, if we check this, it's looking like they are using these Tinubu's government to justify whatever borrowing happened under Buhari. And there are many persons who explain that Buhari borrowed Nigeria into nothingness. There is that school of thought. Now that, can't the ADC just talk about Tinubu and whatever they feel about him? Why does it look like they are using this government to justify whatever happened under Buhari? Do you see it that way?
Well, that's exactly my question. I condemn Tinubu and Buhari's borrowing plans, spending plans, nepotism, and incompetence. So I condemn both these people criticizing. I also condemn their party members who are currently in government for the recklessness in handling our economy. I'm telling you that they set the precedence for what Tinubu is doing. Yes, they have gotten out of Tinubu's backyard simply because they said Tinubu is not sharing the borrowed money equally amongst all themselves. That when Buhari was borrowing, the sharing was going around, and that's corruption. But when Tinubu is not borrowing, they are not getting their own cut, and that's why they have left to go start this campaign against Tinubu. And I'm telling you, I think we need to strengthen the opposition. That's my word. So these people making this accusation, yeah, it will give Tinubu trouble because this is not the conventional opposition. These are in-house members of the APC. Now, as CPC faction, gotten out of the APC and are now lambasting their partner, which is President Tinubu. And I'm telling you that these are opening salvos. We that have suffered this kind of incompetence from these two groups should wait to hear more as they confess in regards to how President Buhari, when he borrowed, allowed them to share the money, but President Tinubu, when he borrowed, is only sharing it with his Lagos caucus, and that's why you're hearing them shout. So this is not the real talk. When a platform is set proper for the opposition, you will see that platform.
You think the ADC is
and
not that
I believe
now?
No. The ADC is a staging station to help the CPC faction who are leaving the APC so that they can hold themselves there. When you now bring in the opposition PDP into the fold, that's when you can now have the opposition united. That is still in the works. But for that to work, the members of the ADC should understand that the reasons for the implosion of the PDP in our democracy is the refusal of elements of the political class from the north to concede the presidency to the south after 8 years of Buhari's administration. So even them in the APC tried to float Ahmed Lawal from the north after 8 years of Buhari. We in the PDP, because of the fight led by Peter Obi, we broke away. Kwankwaso broke away. We started the youth movement, under which I served as special advisor to Peter Obi on public affairs. So I am well placed to tell the story of why the opposition broke apart. And I am now telling you that what you're hearing are members of the same APC family, but situated as a CPC faction, currently now arguing against President Tinubu, which is good. You know, a political party is like a church. Bring the righteous, is all the sinners. So they are okay.
What you are saying, if I understand you now,
what I'm saying
that the ADC is just part of the process. The opposition is here to reach the destination.
Yes, the opposition is yet to declare a platform for opposition unity, and you can see the PDP is beginning to do that by zoning the presidency to the south. PDP now ends the internal implosion that forced the splintering of the opposition ranks. If the APC now buys into that idea, then you can now see a consolidation of the opposition, and that's where we are now. So they have made their game, and they have been told by Peter Obi that if you do not zone to the south, we will not be part of the ADC. So the people in the north who agree with that argument, like Erufai, is now going about with Peter Obi. He agrees that the thing should, you know, go to the south. So you cannot be a crusader if you're not holistic with honesty. No, you can't. And that's my word to the ADC. If you're honest, then you should see part of what you're doing as your own contributions to nation building. You cannot do nation building without inclusion of the diversity of any society. Atiku Abubakar has enjoyed inclusion. That's why, since he became a Nigerian in 1961, after the plebiscite that brought in Northern Cameroon to Nigeria, he has enjoyed the inclusion to such an extent that today he was a vice president. Today he could challenge. But let him allow the inclusion of people from the south in the governance of Nigeria, so that we can all together work as opposition, work as members of incumbent party, work together as Nigerians to be able to bring progress to our teeming population spread across the heterogeneous societies that make up a diverse Nigeria. That's my word. If you want to go far, go with others in the Nigerian community. But if you want to go fast, you can go alone, as they're not trying to travel alone. But there is no path to where the CPC is trying to go to. The CPC should, as a body, purge themselves of the anti-South story and allow power to shift to the south and stay there for 8 years, because it would be wrong for anybody to expect President Tinubu, after spending his term, to now try to impose another Yoruba man to now succeed him. That would be wrong. So in that same way, people like Atiku and those in CP's faction should understand that they must make up their mind to allow the South an inclusion in the governance of Nigeria if their ADC alliance is to work. Why do I say this? Whether you bring the opposition together inside the PDP or you bring them outside as an alliance, you must deal after a post-mortem with the foundational problem that caused the implosion and dismemberment of the opposition. The opposition can never be united if you don't, after 8 years of northern rule by Buhari, accept it in your mind that the people from the South should also be allowed access to governance of Nigeria. That's what I'm saying.
All right.
Now that we have had the opening salvos from members of the CPC who are now gathered in the ADC, I'm advising them to broaden the opposition and broaden the composition of their membership by agreeing to concede, like the PDP has done, to the Southerners the presidency of Nigeria.
All right, Dr. Nonuju. Just away from politics for a moment, I'll still come back to that. Let's take a critical look at the economy under Tinubu. For the sake of those who would argue in favor of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu saying Nigeria is getting better, we have it on good authority that since he came into office and fuel subsidy was removed, economists argue that Nigeria has saved about 10 trillion naira from the removal of fuel subsidy alone. But borrowing has increased, incessant borrowings. Poverty levels have increased in Nigeria. We have rising poverty levels. Unemployment levels have also increased. So where is the disconnect here? That's the big question. What are the implications of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's incessant borrowings? What exactly is he trying to achieve? Where is the money going to? Some will argue that, oh, he's borrowing money, but he's actually sharing it among the states. That the states and other organs of government are getting more money. That is not as if he's keeping all the monies to himself. The big question is, how does it affect the average Nigeria? Poverty is rising, unemployment is rising, electricity supply is worsening. We just saw the report this morning again. So what exactly is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu trying to achieve here? Or is he just surrounded by sycophants who are just deceiving him and telling him that everything is fine, whereas the average Nigerian on the street is complaining?
I think Tinubu's problem is that he's weak. Because he seeks a second term, he's very weak towards the governors. The state, the superstructure called the Nigerian state, is the largest employer in Nigeria, not a private industry. And the governors have, as you right now stated, been getting more money, 3 times what they used to get before. But the governors have not been fair in passing this money to employees of states. Look at the minimum wage. Most governors still have not implemented the minimum wage. Look at the rhetorics President Tinubu gained and put forward in trying to achieve autonomy for local governments. The money is not going to the local government. So what you don't have is, you don't have those spendings that will actually stimulate, you know, the roll down effect. That's the problem. The governors are piling the monies in their hands. The monies are not being passed to the people. And President Tinubu is not saying anything about this. Because of you're not paying out that money, you're not stimulating the local economies in the states. It is when, if you were able to, as you have now gotten triple allocations compared to what it was before, double salaries in the states or triple salaries in the state, workers will have more disposable income to be able to spend. It is those spendings that actually force stimulation in the local economy.
Yeah, Dr. Katz, sorry to cut in here. You said the monies are getting to the state, but it's not trickling down to the people. and Tinubu is not saying anything about it. Now,
exactly. And Tinubu is not saying anything.
President Tinubu is a strategist. Here's my question, Dr. Kaj. President Tinubu is a strategist. He's known as a strategist. Do you think this might just be a trap for the state governors? Don't you think this might just be a trap for them saying, okay, fine, you have the monies, but when you don't spend it on the people, so that when the time comes, he can actually use it against them and say, oh, after all, I gave you so much money, you have to support me. So some Nigerians are saying this might just be a trap for the state governors so that they will have no choice than to support Mr. President in his bid for a second term in office.
So why should his strategy for the bid for second term be the reason for him to stay mute while the population and the economy suffer? I'm asking that question now. If you're saying it's a strategy, it's a wrong strategy. You keep quiet as a strategy, you don't want to offend the governors, and then the governors seize the money that they should have spent, that when they're spent will now cause a trickle down. Look, most spendings are actually done to stimulate the economy. Most governments get into labor-intensive infrastructure spendings as a way to release money that can trickle down into the larger economy. If you now are spending this money to the governors are not allowing the money to spread through the local governments or through their own state spendings, you have a problem. There will be no trickle down to the larger population, and you're not seeing people suffer. So can't you see something is wrong? It is the weakness of Bola Tinubu that have sustained the things that are going on. The governors are not listening to him in both the issue of local government. Remember, local government autonomy, sealed and done at the Supreme Court. Are the local governments getting the money? No. If they are getting the money, they will spend it, and the spending will bring about the trickle down that will actually put money in the hands of consumers to stimulate the local economies. It's not happening. If the governors are also doubling salaries as they should have done, or tripling salaries as they should have done, you will see that workers will have more disposable income, which when they spend will cause a stimulation of the economies where they are. It is not happening across the country. So I tell you, the president is either incompetent or he is guilty and being negligent of this his duty. And so this is not good for the people. It's not good for the country. It's not good for the economy. And all this has been happening since the president came to power because we do not have a virile opposition. The opposition, today you have two presidents in the country. A hard president that can command troops, President Tinubu, a soft president that has won the heart, and that is Peter Obi. It shouldn't be so. So let us do the necessary connections. Let President Tinubu be president of the people. Both being a hard president and also this president that's the president that has winning hearts. President that through his policies, governors act in a way to allow the trickle down to actually help the local economies through stimulations of money, of the economy due to the money that come to the hands. Governments across the world intentionally engage in labor-intensive infrastructure projects as a strategy to help the trickle down to the people through such government spendings. Yeah, it's not happening in Nigeria.
We are due
it is not happening in Nigeria
right now. And you said maybe President Tinubu's approach is weak because he's just allowing the governors to do what they want, even when he puts more money into their hands and the local government have more money and all of those things. But as some other people think otherwise, they think the president has been softly high-handed. He has been, hounding the governors in a kind of a way, especially those seeking re-election, to join his party. In fact, the ADC has said the reason why some governors are not joining them is because they are afraid of Mr. President. We will look into all of these in the other part. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We have been talking about the business of governance and the politics side of it, allegations and counter-allegations. The opposition, or one of the opposition parties in Nigeria, a coalition, who have found a home in a party called the African Democratic Congress, ADC, has accused Mr. President of being fiscally reckless with the way he has been, going about borrowing loans and all of those things. That what his predecessor has borrowed cannot even be equated to how he has been borrowing his under this administration, at least just 2 years into this administration. And that was said by the APC's spokesperson, Bola Ahmed. We have Dr. Kaj with us, speaking his mind on this development. Now, Dr. Kaj, before we went on break, said maybe the president have just allowed the governors, to be doing what they want, and he appears weak with the way he has allowed them, even when he puts more money into their hands with the subsidy that has been, the subsidy payment that has stopped, and Nigerians having more money now. My colleague Daniel has saying, if actually we are saving more money by not paying subsidies now, so we can spend this money on other things, how come we are borrowing more? The kind of borrowing that we didn't even borrow when we were paying subsidy. At least that's what the ADC said. And then talking about the president, some will say, Dr. Kaj, that there is a separation of powers. The president was elected by the people, the governor was elected by the people, even local government chairman was elected. They were elected by the people. The president cannot necessarily tell any governor what to do with the money they are being given, because it doesn't control them. This is presidential system of government. That's number one. And number two is this: the ADC have come out to say that the reason why they don't have governors joining their ranks right now is because those governors are afraid. And that was released in another communique, by Bolaji Abdullahi, where he talked about why no governor is willing to join the coalition. And let me say what he said exactly. He said, we don't have any favorite, or the ADC welcomes everybody, but we are convinced that we're a movement that has the backing of the majority of Nigerians who are not happy with the direction this country is going. And these are some of the things he said. And categorically, he said the governors are afraid of the president. That is why they are not joining the ADC. And you said, Dr. Kaj, that the president is weak. How? How do you justify?
The APC members who are now up in arms against the president is telling you that governors are afraid. Governors may be afraid of the protocols that they established in the APC before they left. They are the ones that organized this state of fear when they raised the stake and then went straight for state capture instead of allowing democracy to sustain. So I don't take their words seriously. I think they are responsible for this crisis, and they can't tell us what Tinubu is doing. We know. We complained for 8 years what they were doing under Buhari. All of them kept quiet. So for now, simply think changing his agbada to a suit like me will make him be like me. It's not true. It doesn't work that way. We are very, very, very alert, driven members. We have had our eyes open since, and we are telling them, good morning. Welcome to our side of the fence. What we are seeing, what we have been talking about, what we have been complaining about, you now want to see and also complain. I welcome you. But I also want to remind you, you caused this problem. You and Buhari and Tinubu designed this strategy of state capture. Tinubu has now learned your protocols, is now taking a page from your manual to do exactly what you people did to us. And you now come to think I will take your word serious. No, I won't. If you want to really to Doctor, show me that you have changed, I will see it.
To us? What do you mean? Who are the us that you are referring
to? Us. Us are members of the opposition who have suffered in the hands of the APC administration. And we see the APC as members who founded the APC, who brought down Jonathan. The reasons why you see Tinubu doesn't have sympathy now is because he connived with these people who are now talking to bring down a government that was doing very well economically. And when they now put Buhari to power, the destruction and the bankruptcy of our economy started. These people didn't say anything, but now they have now left Tinubu, probably because the sharing is not being done well. And they are now saying the same things that we've been saying for 8 years, now for 10 years. What I tell them is welcome, but for you people to be able to unite the opposition, let us reason together and find out the reasons why the opposition broke apart. Because all these rhetorics will come to nothing if the opposition are not united. It's the unity of the that bring pressure. So don't think because we're not yet united, you're not calling the ADC Northern Front, the North this. No, it's not true. The North is not monolithic anymore. The North is broken down. So what I'm talking about is, in whatever we do, think about the holistic picture of the Nigerian state. That's what I'm talking about. We've been suffering this, we've been saying this, but you people didn't agree. Now that you people have agreed, broken out of Tinubu's camp as a CPC, gone now to organize yourself with remnants of the NPDP, and then we're now saying it is time we unite the opposition so that Tinubu can stand up and do things the way he should do. We condemn the employment of nepotism as strategy of state. It is Tinubu who said he will continue where Buhari stopped. You people didn't say anything. And he has not continued Buhari's nepotism, but you don't like
Dr.
it.
Nonuju. Yeah, let's move on a little bit here. The coalition has accused Mr. President severally of, intimidating the governors because of fear of intimidation. That's why they are not defecting and all that. But the question is, Dr. Kaj, if the governors' hands are clean, why should they be scared of Mr. President? And I'm going to try to link this to the previous question I asked you, that the president is giving the governors and the states more money. Okay, that's why I said some people might feel it's just a trap because he knows that most of the states' governors are not utilizing the funds judiciously. So it could also be a tool, to hold them, to have them on a leash, to say that, after all, you got so much. What did you do with it? Now it is time for you to join my party and support me. So is that really the intimidation the governors are talking about? Or is there any other form of intimidation? If you, Dr. Nonju, are a governor in Nigeria, why should you be scared of the president if your hands are clean?
Listen, nobody's. The truth is their hands are not clean. But the most importantly is that the current menage a trois that exists between INEC, the judiciary, and the APC, if it is not changed through electoral reforms that insist, one, on the transmission of electoral results, electronic transmission, then we're not going to have any progress from the rhetorics we've been banding about. And the president seems to be in control of those agents of coercion. These protocols of coercion, the police, and of course, the judiciary that seem currently captured, whatever they are prodded to do by the executive, they will do. So if we do not check these things properly, all the noise we're making will come to nothing. And I am telling you now that a lot of the people who are now making noise were part of those who worked to entomb the judiciary in the pocket of the APC. So the governors are afraid because they could lose their states if, without these amendments that will make elections free and fair, they know the presidency could influence INEC, the police, and the judiciary to manufacture a win for any candidate that they want. Is what is frightening the governors. The presidency is too powerful. You see, we're now running a system where we have powerful men and very weak institutions of state. INEC is weak, the judiciary is weak, even the security services are weak. That's why it took the president to say, why are there no arrests for arrests to occur in 48 hours in the Benue genocide that we talked about in Yellowater? This is a problem, and I blame this body of gentlemen who are now staging in the APC of being the cooks with Buhari that brought about not only Tinubu, but also the state in which Nigeria is.
Now, you said the reason why the governors, many of them are tending towards the president, and we've seen it, some of them are cross-carpeted fully. Delta State, Sheriff Oborowori, the entire government of PDP in that state moved over. Umar Eno, showed where it belonged. Later, it decamped fully. Ademola Adeleke in Osun State has taken a position to say he will remain in the PDP and contest the election, but we support Mr. President. Sheyi Makinde, we all know where he belonged, even before the election, even though he's a governor of the PDP. And you are saying the instrument of the state, the police, security, INEC, you even say manufacture a win, for that party in any state. That's somebody, if that is what you're saying, that's more like accusing Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu of not being a true Democrat. And that's a badge. He has won. He has said he's a big Democrat. That's accusing it, isn't it?
Those are rhetorics he has bandied about that he's a true Democrat. But you see, like I normally tell people, don't believe rhetorics from politicians. Look at their actions. Actions speak louder than words through history. Look at their actions. Mr. President's action doesn't show that he is there.
How?
For the country. He's there for himself. He's there for whatever he wants. See how the powers are so concentrated in his hands. If he gives instruction, that is it. He said, remember what Adam Oshomole said? Come to our party, your sins will be forgiven.
But that was before
Tinubu. Why the statement that listen to me?
Okay.
And where is Tinubu now and Oshomole? Is still in the same APC. So if the chairman said it, and you are now stating that the Delta State government all went there, it was because Mr. Patrick Okowa spent Delta State money in funding the Atiku Abubakar campaign. So now that the Tinubu administration has now set the searchlight on him to try them for corruption for the monies embezzled from Delta State, instead of Mr. Okowa to now go answer to the questions by the anti-corruption agencies, he has now advised Sheriff Oboroworo, his successor, let us move to the APC so that, as Mr. Adam Oshomole says, our sins will be forgiven. And that's what you're seeing. So he said, Adam said it is working. And that's why I'm telling you, if the government is now, puppeteering the institutions of states, like the anti-corruption agency, in which if you, as Adam said, you come to the APC, your sins will be forgiven. Don't you see that the governors know that if they are loyal and friendly with the APC, their sins will be forgiven. But should they, as you rightly stated, decide to be funny with the president or do what he doesn't want, they will be now asked questions as to what did you do with state money? What happened to this account we saw move to support Atiku campaign, which you now use to buy the vice presidency, and that the vice presidential slot.
Right.
And that's why, as you stated, the Delta government have moved to APC. But that's also bad about our state. And I'm telling you, yes, human beings may have their strategy. One of the ways that society could use to fight that is electoral act. If we can do review and reform the electoral system, let us go to the mandatory electronic transfer of results. That is a good thing for us. If that would be allowed, yes, but then from the way the government is going about, me and you can say that electoral reforms is just a pipe dream. So this is what, but we don't stop agitating for a good society. Right. You're very right. Mr. President prided himself as a Democrat, but you can see now that from the fears that the governors are having, of course, there cannot be any fire without smoke, and there cannot be smoke without fire because they go together. So I am not telling you the governors' fears are well-founded, because should they do anything that will make the president suspect that the reality may be a suspect or in doubt, then they could be visited with what they may not want. They could lose their state, because that's the biggest prize, winning your state, being able to produce your successor.
All right.
Sheriff in Delta State, don't forget, is a first-term governor. So if he doesn't play ball, he may not get his re-election.
All right, Dr. Onju, let's take a broader look at opposition, the opposition in Nigeria at this time. Currently, the PDP, they're having challenges. The Labour Party as well, they're also having challenges. They've even threatened to expel Mr. Peter Obi, who was their flag bearer, for the 2023 general elections. But recently, we just heard from Professor Jerry Garner saying that the PDP is actually in talks with Mr. Peter Obi. Where do you see these talks leading to? Do we have a possibility of having Peter Obi in the PDP, representing the PDP, going into the 2027 general elections? Let's also factor in the fact that we have someone like Seyi Makinde, who's also nursing an ambition of becoming president, like we hear. We also have other people in the PDP. So where do you see this going forward? Do you see this as an opportunity for the PDP to actually woo Peter Obi into their party, since the Labour Party are still having problems in their house?
First,
okay,
I will treat the Labour Party issue. The Labour Party has an issue because it now has two factions. It has two factions because at the expiration of the tenure of Mr. Julius Abure, Mr. Julius Abure has refused to hold a convention for the election of new officers. A convention normally is done when you go to the wards, you hold what they call ward congresses. It produces delegates that will now go for local congresses, which now produces delegates that will now proceed to state congresses, that will now produce delegates that you now use to go to national convention. Now, Mr. Abure didn't do these things. He just did some acrobatics, him and his executives, and then they now re-elected at a kangaroo convention. That is not known to INEC. INEC has said he's not known to law. The lawyers have said he's not, the Supreme Court has said he's not no more chairman. But because of the way our system is, the judiciaries are so challenged that Abure can go back to court and say no.
All right. I guess we lost connection there. We tried to reestablish connection. I really like him to land on that point. You're talking about the issues on there.
Yes, they say that maintenance over, but the judicial system is...
Please go ahead, Dr. Onju.
Yes, what I'm trying to say, I'm back. Can you hear me now?
Absolutely.
Okay. What I'm trying to tell, yes, what I'm trying to tell you is that the judiciary currently is challenged. And because the judiciary is challenged, we now have Abure able to, despite Supreme Court pronouncement and the pronouncement of INEC, that he has ceased to be chairman, he could still have forum shop judgments that will keep him there, because, as I said earlier, the judiciary is challenged. Now, moving to the issue, the second question which you asked me about the PDP, nothing lasts forever. The PDP has been able now to buy for itself temporary peace by conceding to its secretary that he can stay and serve out his tenure until the convention in November or December, wherever that may be.
November.
And they have formally done something which they believe could correct the reasons for the implosion. And that was when the presidential pendulum was in the north for 8 years, brought about by President Buhari, whose election was also helped by members of MPDP led by Mr. Atiku Abubakar. The Atiku Abubakar and other members of the Northern Political came back to the PDP to try to double game the system by also insisting that after Buhari, that they should be allowed to succeed Buhari. And that was why we, members of the PDP from the South, we refused. As we were saying that members of the APC from the South were also saying the same thing, and that was how you saw President Tinubu emerge through his ways. And then we in the PDP allowed the implosion due to them, people led by Atiku not agreeing for the political pressure pendulum to swing to the South. So we now formed the youth movement, and then the PDP became imploded. So the PDP now have organized a public lecture at the Nass Club, and they have now stated that they have zoned their presence to the South. And that's why you saw Mr. Atiku left to go and start this alliance. And we are telling him, whether you discuss inside the PDP, as the PDP has now agreed to correct itself by zoning to the South, or discuss outside, calling it coalition, you must agree to zone to the South for the opposition to come back to peace. So the PDP has zoned to the South, and as you correctly stated, they are now currently speaking. As I was saying, allow me finish my line of thought. The PDP are now speaking to Mr. Peter Obi, and of course, Peter Obi is speaking to them because they intend to forum shop Peter Obi. So Peter Obi, if he comes back, agrees, if terms are agreed, can now use the strength of the obedient movement to now repopulate and rebuild the PDP, rebuild the opposition. No other politician has that clout, that capacity, that ability. That's why they are forum shopping him. So forget Mr. Makinde, whom you've earlier stated that people know that he is with one leg in the PDP and another leg in support of Tinubu. So that's the PDP knows. That's why they are talking to Peter Obi, trying to forum shop him and then be able to use him to do what they want. That is true, but at this stage, those are what you would describe as ongoing talks. There are a lot of things to be said, a lot of things to be done before confidences can be well rebuilt and the PDP can come back as the main platform for opposition policies, which of course will now make the ADC Ruga. Ruga is a Fulani word for a temporary shelter. That's why I told you the ADC is a temporary shelter, is a Ruga. The Ruga can now be emptied, and if the opposition want to unite, they can now unite under one umbrella. So you can see why, since I've been telling you that the ADC is a temporary Ruga used by members of the CPC to show their anger towards Tinubu's continuation of Buhari's policies of exclusion, which the East had complained very much about. So for us to be able to rebuild the opposition in our country, we need to be inclusive in our thoughts of the holistic Nigerian, diversity. Bring them in if you want anybody to follow you. As the adage says, if you want to go far, go with everybody. But if you want to go fast, as the ADC have done, go alone. So that going alone has now forced the ADC to be speaking as if they are only made up of Northerners. No, an opposition to salvage Nigeria should be made up of people from all walks of life in our country, because we are a diverse and heterogeneous country. Yes. And that's the only way for us to actually bring the opposition together. All right, Dr. Nonju, just before we go, we are totally out of time. I just want to quickly ask you, President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan was not allowed to, finish his second term, to do a second term before Buhari came in and did 8 years. Do you see this as a justification for a northerner to come in after Tinubu now, after Tinubu's first term, and still do 8 years? Would that be a justification for that? No. The North has ruled this country since 1960, far much longer than the South. The Northerners are beginning to have a dislike for accommodating the Southerners in governance. It started vividly during the Abiola 1993 episode, when Abiola is certain and won an election, Northerners connived to annul the election and then gave the advantage to Abacha, a Southerner from Borno State, a Kanuri man. So since that time, some people in the North have thought that maybe there is a need to expand the settler colonialism achieved over the Hausa Bokwe states by the Fulani to the rest of the country. And that's why the rest of the country are saying no. Settler colonialism did not work in South Africa, didn't work in Namibia, didn't work in Mozambique or Zimbabwe. It should not be allowed to work in Nigeria. The elements in the North who are very, very, disagreeing to inclusion of Southerners in governance should wake up from their slumber and sleep. We all belong together. No matter what creations the soldiers have done, which are fraudulent, the resources that have kept this country going come from the South, both material and human resources. If the Southerners have agreed to accommodate the Northerners with affirmative actions like the quota system and the rest of it, allowing them to partake in the economic wealth of the South.
Right. Thank you, Dr.
The North should understand that governance should be inclusive of all of Nigeria.
Right. Thank you very much. Very interesting analogy you gave with the Ruga thing, when you are submitting your position right now. And I'm sure Nigerians have had what you think is happening, especially with the ADC, where you have said it's only one of the components to reaching a destination for cohesive coalition. But Nigerians will keep asking, how will this better our Lord? Dr. Kaj Ononuju is the Director General at the Heritage Center, a politician and public affairs analyst. It's always good to talk with you, Doctor. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. And of course, this is where we pull the brakes. It's been an explosive one this morning. And having the week starter on this note shows you where and how it will be interesting. If you want it important, if you think it's worth talking about, this is where it happens. On Morning Spring on Western Spring Television, we will, leave you right now with the brilliance, the statement of purpose by the Super Falcons, where they knew what they were getting into. They spoke, they granted an interview, they went for it. And even at the final, when it looked like they were going to fail, no, the Falcons rose like a phoenix through the ashes and flew so high. And now they have achieved their Mission X. That's what they call it. Spanish call it La Decima, but the Falcons call it Mission X. And they are now the 10th, they are 10-time champions of Africa. Kudos to the Falcons. Femi Ojo is my name. A big shout out to all the ladies. You have done well.
And absolutely, congratulations once again to the Super Falcons of Nigeria for winning the WAFCON. Thank you so much for doing us proud. Emeka Daniel is my name. Join us again tomorrow for a fresh edition of Morning Spring on Western Spring Television. Do have a wonderful day. Good morning.